welcome to the Dibley Diaries for this week. This week we're going to be thinking about the time when Jesus was accused of being out of his mind and some of the situation that happened around that. And from a mental health point of view, I wanted to talk about, just raise some flags about mental health issues in the countryside. Obviously people in the countryside are as prone to have struggles with their mental health as they are in towns, but sometimes it can be different causes. So often in the farming community there is immense pressure on farmers, and so a lot of farmers really struggle with their mental health, and that's a well-known phenomenon. People are reliant for large amounts of money on crops, on produce, on things happening, on like supermarket pricing. So farming can be a really stressful place for people and can be difficult for people struggling with their mental health. The other thing that happens in more rural communities is that people are kind of accepted as being very eccentric, and that's great, because if people are struggling with their mental health, people understand it and they just go, oh well, it's that person, and they might need a bit of support in this, or they might need a bit of support in that. People understand that. I wonder sometimes if that works both ways though, in that sometimes people need to be encouraged to seek help with their mental health issues, and I think actually the kind of community supporting them can mask some of that requirement to actually know we need there to be professionals involved in it. Countryside can be quite isolating, there can be difficulties with transport, there can just be kind of physical access barriers to gaining mental health support as well. So I think I would say in the countryside mental health issues can be a problem. The community can be a really good thing, or it can sometimes hold people back when it shouldn't be about people gaining help with their mental health issues. And as it is in the town as well, in the countryside we just need to be kind. That's what we need to be kind. Thought for the week this week is based on the lectionary reading that we have, which is in Mark chapter 3, beginning at verse 20, where there's this interaction and where Jesus' mothers and brothers are sent for because people are concerned that Jesus is out of his mind. There's quite a lot of theological discussion about whether Jesus is demon possessed or whether he's just unwell, and Jesus argues with those people saying that he's possessed by saying, well, I am doing all these good things, I'm healing people, people are well, I'm releasing people from being oppressed, and yet you say that I'm working for Satan. Well, that would be stupid, because I'm all these good things are happening. Jesus makes this argument to people, and they think about what that kind of might be like. But then Jesus's mother and brothers do arrive to see him, and Jesus says, no, I'm not going to see them. You here are my brothers and my mother, and that is what Jesus says, and that's how the passage kind of ends. I really feel a strong affinity for this passage because there have been instances in my own family where people have been very unwell, and someone has done the phone call to say, you need to go and sort this person out because I think they're really unwell. That they are very unwell, and you need to go and sort them out. And in some ways that's what the phone call that Jesus's mother and brothers received was we think this person is mad, essentially, and we need you to come and sort them out. And that's a really difficult phone call for any family to receive. It's a difficult thing to deal with, and it's interesting when we think about the word madness. Some of us think of a 1980s pop group, but actually you might think of the madness of King George, or all these other things where people think about how people who are mentally unwell are living in a different place. They're not complying to societal norms, they're not doing things that seem sensible or rational, and this is what people thought about Jesus. Jesus wasn't complying to the societal norms. He wasn't doing the things that they wanted him to do. He was saying things which they felt were outrageous, and he was claiming to be the Son of God, and all these sorts of things which people felt were signs that he was unwell. But Jesus countered these by saying, look, see the results of what I'm doing. Look at what's happening. Look at what's happening for people in this situation. There's good happening here. And when he knows that his mothers and his brothers have been called for to send for him and say, well, to assess his mental health state, he says to people, well, no, you are my mother and my brothers. And he's saying to them, well, you have to make the decision. You have to decide what you think about me. If I'm mad, then you need to think that that's what you think about me. Famously, C.S. Lewis wrote a little kind of apologetic stuff about the fact that Jesus was either mad, bad, or God. So looking at all the things that Jesus said and did, you had to agree that Jesus was either mad, that he was delusional, or you have to think that he was evil, that he was manipulating people in what he said, or you have to come to the conclusion that he was God. And that's the decision that Jesus is saying to everybody who's there with him. Look, my mother and brothers are here because somebody's called them because they think I'm unwell, but actually, no, you have to decide, you have to make that decision. And in that kind of forerunning of what C.S. Lewis said, you have to decide whether I'm mad or whether I'm bad or whether actually what I say is true. So this week, when we think about what Jesus did, how his actions reconciled us to God, we still need to make that decision for ourselves. We need to look at Jesus and make that understanding for ourselves about, do we think Jesus is delusional? Do we think Jesus is indeed God, or do we think Jesus is evil? There's no fluffy, friendly Jesus in this scenario. We have to make a decision on those grounds. So this week, as we think about Jesus, we need to be judging his actions against those criteria that he has said that we should think about. The Dibley moment for the week this week is one of those really poignant Dibley moments, not a hilarious Dibley moment. It's one of those moments where we think about the fact the vicar has to do something really difficult. I had a situation quite a few years ago now where I had a couple who I knew moderately well who were getting married, and they phoned me the week before the wedding to say that one of their distant relatives was threatening to come to the wedding and object to the marriage being legally valid on the grounds of insanity. And that was such a cruel thing for that person to be doing, such a horrible thing for that couple. Anyway, I spent quite a long time on the phone to the legal team in the diocese, and we discussed whether or not we could do the actual legal side of the wedding at the rehearsal and then just have a blessing on the day after. The legal team said, well, if you're going to do that, I think you really need to inform the person who is threatening to object that that is your intention. So I had to do the thing of phoning up the person and saying, yes, I'm the vicar who's going to be marrying these people, and I understand that you are planning to object at the wedding, and it's much easier if I know about that before that happens. And he stepped right back. He stepped absolutely all the way back. Although at that point I did know if he was going to object on the grounds of not having mental capacity, I knew exactly what I needed to do in that case. Well, that's it for the Dibley Diaries this week. I pray that you and your village, however large or small, have a really blessed week where you can all be kind to each other, whatever anybody's state of mental health is at a particular time.